What would you buy with £50 billion? That's not a question most of us get to ask ourselves very often, except Nick, that is, obviously. But that's precisely what the EU will be able to do after the government agreed to up their offer of a Brexit divorce bill in the hope it will unlock trade talks next month. As a Brexiteer, I am of course outraged by this. But logically, to achieve the best outcome, there's no other option. It's what we have to do. What I'm most angry about is the childish behaviour of politicians, here and in Europe, when it comes to Brexit. The EU is trying to punish us, saying we can't even talk about trade until we've given them enough money. And MPs here, especially Labour, and know better. They are making life difficult for this government just to score points. And I am so tired and bored of all the squabbling around Brexit. Politicians need to grow up and do their jobs. That's what they are paid for. We've decided, we've voted, so please, let's just get on with it.
Like you, I'm bored with all the squabbling. And as you know, I'm an ardent Leaver, but I am incandescent with rage at the idea that we should be paying 50 billion quid to leave the EU. We didn't vote for this surrender. This is sickening appeasement on a grand scale. You know, Theresa May said, no deal is a bad deal. This is a terrible deal. And people will quite rightly go bananas on this. We've gone from Boris saying, go whistle, to 50 billion quid, which I think is...
Potentially, that's not being decided.
Potentially, but, if knowing our lot, the way they've been negotiating so far, we'll probably end up paying more. And, yes, we should pay what we contractually owe, but we should not pay to trade. Trade is not an act of generosity. We are going to be doing this. And, people, last week, I think it was the World Bank published a paper saying if we had to walk away without a deal, what would happen is, and if we had to go to world trade rules with the 27 different countries, they said the worst case scenario is that our trade with the EU would go down by just 2%. So it's not going to be catastrophic. But the idea that we have to pay to trade with them is kind of pay what we owe, but what we owe is not 50 billion.
But if it is 50 billion... if it's decided, because don't forget all that's happened now is we've agreed a framework by which we will calculate this. And if you've got liabilities, you will also have assets as well. So
Exactly.
we don't know what that amount is. But if that amount is 50 billion contractually that we owe, would you be comfortable with that?
I don't believe it is 50
No, but
billion.
if it is...
But I don't believe it
but
is.
But if it is...
That's a rhetorical question. I can't answer
it.
I don't believe it is.
But let's just say...
we could just go on all night.
We don't know what the amount is, but... if it is decided and determined it's 50, would you be okay?
The bottom line is,
I think you mean yes.
EU lawyers have said we don't actually have to pay anything. Actually, we're being the good guys saying that we will pay up to the end of the budget in 2019. We don't actually have to do that.
But we do have contractual
obligations.
obligations.
But the idea we're going to commit 50 billion quid is outrageous.
I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's not really funny.
It's not funny.
I mean, you talk about a bad deal. For me, the bad deal... and I'm also upset about 50 billion. And the reason I'm upset is that we are going to have to pay, predictably in my view, a huge amount of money to leave an organisation which has benefited us. It is a catastrophically bad deal, but it was always foreseeable. And that's what upsets me, that people voted Brexit, I think, not understanding the cost. And Carol, I know you don't like the amount of money. None of us do, but we were always going to have to pay to leave. And that's why it upsets me.
It's far worse than how you say. People voted leave on the assumption that rather than us paying 50 billion, we were going to get 350 million a week back to pay.
And as we saw into their coffers.
As we even saw from the budget, which I think was last week, although it feels like a lifetime ago, the NHS is getting 2.7 billion, but just in order for us to achieve Brexit, the customs and the lorry parks and all the rest of it, they need another 3 billion. So Brexit is actually going to cost an enormous amount of money. But on the 50 billion, Carol, this is called the rest a liquide, which is to do with the things that we agreed to do that we are getting some benefit from. And actually that cost will be amortised, sorry to use a boring word, over could be a long time. And I think, in fact, the Treasury is going to make it look much smaller than 50 billion. In order to calm people like you and Nigel Farage, who've also said it's outrageous.
This is what Remainers do.
Sorry, don't point your finger at me, Carol.
You're trying to
not. You say it's outrageous. Nigel Farage says it's outrageous. I'm just saying you don't say it's outrageous.
Why don't you compare me to the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the European Union?
Why are you getting so angry?
You're inflammatory. You do this every week about Brexit. It's inflammatory.
I just remind you, Michelle, the conversation you're leading is called a price worth paying. So I decided to get my calculator out and find out exactly what £50 billion might buy, and I thought I'd run you through some of these. It could get you 8 aircraft carriers, 300,000 doctors, 2,000 royal weddings, 12.5 billion pints of beer, or a night in the jungle with Stanley Johnson, and I know which one I would go for.
How many villas in the south of France?
Oh, goodness knows how many villas. Well, I haven't got that many. I've closed it down at 17,500 now. But coming back to the point, so just so I don't... OK. I don't know if it's £50 billion. If it is £50 billion, then we'd probably better pay it. On the upside of what the team to my left are saying, if you were to look at, and if it is amortised over 20 or 30 years, actually that is still a saving of what we would have paid in to be members of the EU. Yeah. To support the team on my right, I think it does speak to the fact that we are at best flailing in these negotiations. It wasn't properly presented to the people, a bit like the Northern Irish border, and we are trying to find our way. Sorry, Michelle, it's your debate.
But I don't think we are flailing. I just feel everybody, we've all become like amateur economists. We all seem to think we know better than the people who are currently being paid to run these negotiations. Every twist, every turn, every conversation. But I am fed up of it. I am fed up of politicians using it as an opportunity to score points and snipe. And
that's what they have to do,
Michelle. No, they don't. What they have to do is go, you know what, if we've collectively decided that if we've majority decided we're going to do Brexit, then let's pull together, let's work together to achieve that.
You can see they must negotiate for the best deal. So you wouldn't just want David Davis saying, right, this is the deal, and everybody saying, yeah, all right. You don't want to unquestionably march behind the leader, do you? You do want a little bit of, well, why don't we try a bit more here? Why don't we try...
Michelle, I can't work out whether I agree with you or not, because I completely agree with you that we do need to be clear-eyed about this. There are obligations and liabilities, and we're going to have to pay what we have to pay. Yeah. However, I feel, and tell me if I'm wrong, that implicit in what you're saying is this kind of suspicion that people are somehow trying to sabotage the negotiations or trying to make them more complicated than they are. I think they are complicated and they're costly, and that was always going to be the case.
I think the way we are being treated by the EU in various different parts is absolutely disgusting. I think the fact that they would not even have... Like, why are you forcing us to commit to a sum of money before you will even have conversations about future relationships? Why are we being forced into a corner to say we're going to give you this before we even know what we're going to get in return? I know people, for example, that live in Spain who are currently being told when they go to more than one airport on more than one occasion, they have to go in this separate queue. When I hear the way that they are being treated in these airports by European officials, it infuriates me.
How is that different to how Theresa May treated EU residents in the UK by refusing to guarantee their status? People are being held hostage.
They still don't know their status.
But this 50 billion, this is not about paying what we owe necessarily. This is to open trade talks. So it is paying to do trade, which is the ridiculousness. Why should we pay to trade?
You accept we owe some of the money, though?
Yes, we owe some of it, yes.
Because we have given commitment.
Yes, we have.
How, Carol, do you know what the sum is, or which makes you so outraged about 50 billion?
I don't know what the sum is. I didn't
say
I did.
In which case, you know, it may be a very accurate and fair amount, and it's going to open the door.
Okay, so my
feeling
is...
It's going to actually mean that you can leave the EU, which is what you want.
So my feeling is that if this gets any more than 50 billion or more, why aren't we just walking away? We keep on banging on about the importance of a trade deal. You know, Germany has its biggest export market is to America. It doesn't have a trade deal with America, but it trades. Its biggest import thing, the country that it buys most from, is China. It doesn't have a trade deal. Why are we fretting over paying 50 billion for a trade deal?
But do we all agree we have to pay what we owe?
Is the single market. 44% of UK exports go to the EU. We are not America. We are a small nation that will now be isolated if we leave without a deal,
exports to the EU are? It amounts to
45% of our exports go to the EU.
12.6% of our GDP. And if we lost it all, it would amount to 1/4 of our economy.
So you'd be happy to see our manufacturing industry no longer able to export within the EU?
Quoting numbers